All right, ladies and gentlemen, DSP here, and welcome to my year-end awards for 2019. We're starting off with the most disappointing games of 2019 countdown. Now, before we get to it, I do this every single year, but let me preface this with exactly how I categorize games for this countdown. This is not the worst games of 2019 countdown. A lot of people do that kind of countdown. I don't do that. What I do is I look at all the games that I played over the course of 2019, and I single out the ones that I personally feel I wanted to be better than what they were, or maybe the hype made us believe that these games were going to be much better than they actually turned out to be when we played them. For whatever reason, every single one of the games that I'm about to call out on this list were very disappointing to me, okay? Again, does not mean the games overall were absolutely terrible or bad. It just means that for me, I really wish that these games were better for one reason or another. A lot of people have a misconception that because I have something on this list that it doesn't mean that I thought it was good or I'm talking junk about the game. That's actually not the case. As you're going to hear, I'm going to very specifically tell you each and every entry why I believe that they were disappointing for the year of 2019. Now, another thing I want to say up front, this only includes games that I have played. So by default, you may think, well, wow, one of the biggest stinkers of 2019 was Anthem. I purposely skipped it and didn't play it. It doesn't make my list of disappointing games because I never played it, so it couldn't disappoint me. So understand that it's only games that I played. There very much might have been way more games that you found disappointing in 2019 than made my list, but these are just the ones that I personally played and I had feeling that I had to talk about them in this said countdown, okay? Fair enough. 16 games, ladies and gentlemen, this year. 16 games that I sorted out that I want to talk about in this countdown. So let's get to it. Please bear with me. That is not it. What the hell is that? There we go. All right. So without further ado, the most disappointing games of the year countdown, starting with number 16, which just happens to be a little game by the name of Wolfenstein Youngblood. Now, you may be seeing double. That's because, obviously, when I played these games this year, I had a webcam on the screen. I tried to position the webcam in a way that would block it most of the time. In this case, it doesn't. Wolfenstein Youngblood was a continuation of the Wolfenstein gaming franchise from the last decade. And this follows along the B.J. Blazkowicz, the American hero who's trying to rail against the Nazis in this what-if scenario game of what if the Nazis actually won World War II, and actually allowed the world to change in a really weird way, having the Third Reich control everything, all right? The previous games in the series, like Wolfenstein, the Old Blood, the New Blood, and all those games, were actually quite good. But Wolfenstein Youngblood said that it was going to do something different. For the first time ever, there would be two-player co-op in the Wolfenstein franchise, and instead of starring B.J. Blazkowicz, the hero from the previous games, it ended up being his two daughters, who apparently never have been in combat before, but somehow are going to get thrown into the mix of this whole Nazi-controlled world in the 1980s on a rescue mission trying to save their dad. On paper, it sounds like, man, if it just does the same kind of gameplay from Wolfenstein with a co-op aspect, it could be good. And in some respects, the game does excel because it does have some of that gameplay retained from the original Wolfenstein games, but sadly, most of the time, it feels like a completely different franchise. First of all, the girls are completely silly. They have ridiculously bad one-liners, bad dialogue. They're supposed to be angsty teenagers, and they act like it. This is not what you expect from a Wolfenstein game where you're supposed to have a hard-ass hero. Instead, you got two teenagers, and it just doesn't really fit the whole mood of the game. In addition to that, sadly, on top of everything else in the game that sounds like it's Wolfenstein, the game ends up being kind of a ripoff of Crysis or another franchise where you're in a first-person suit where you kind of get abilities that you upgrade. Never before in Wolfenstein has this really been a thing. It's been, okay, you find weapons or whatever, and that's it. But in this one, for some reason, you're getting superpowers, right? You can do super-powered punches and kicks, sliding, stealth cloaking abilities, all kinds of stuff. You're like, what does this have to do with Wolfenstein? Wolfenstein never had that stuff in the franchise, and when you add it in, it makes it feel like you're not playing Wolfenstein anymore. Of course, the biggest problem for me in this game was the repetitiveness of it. Yes, I'd say probably there's maybe 5 major story-based missions in the game that are very fun, but outside of that, the rest of the game is doing repetitive and boring busy work. It feels like you're grinding and wasting your time for most of the game, and in reality, it just doesn't feel like this should be a major installment in the Wolfenstein franchise at all. It feels to me like instead this should have been like a spin-off game that's $30 rather than a full-fledged release that is actually part of the canon of the Wolfenstein franchise. Sadly, I think this is the first game in the actual Wolfenstein franchise that isn't very good. I liked all the other ones from the last decade. This one was a humongous disappointment for me, and I think that they really just didn't do a very good job. Very disappointing for me. This was actually a game that I was originally planning on doing co-op with my wife, but when we heard how bad the game was supposedly going to be, and then I played it for myself a little bit, I said, I'm glad we didn't do co-op because I had to tough through it. I couldn't imagine my wife sitting there for how boring and grindy this game was to want to play it as long as I did. So Wolfenstein Youngblood, very disappointing. All right. The number 15 most disappointing game this year, Blair Witch. This was a game that was supposed to be survival horror, and when we saw the preview of it at E3 this year, it looked really good on paper. Oh man, they're actually making a survival horror game that's Blair Witch. All the lore of those movies going to be thrown into a survival horror game. Sadly, this game ended up being exactly the same as all the other first-person horror games that are out there. You walk around, you look for a clue, you look for something to solve a puzzle, you wander around aimlessly for hours on end, not knowing what the hell you're supposed to do. Oh, look, an audio jump scare or something on the screen that's supposed to scare me. And then on to the next boring segment. And the game kind of trotted on and on and on like that. It just wasn't scary. I'm sorry, a survival horror game needs to be scary. This game wasn't scary. In fact, the only thing I would say that was original about this game you're seeing on the screen right now, there was a mechanic where you would use a camcorder to manipulate time. And so you would look back in the past at what had been recorded, and if you fast forwarded or rewound, it would actually change the landscape in front of you so you could solve puzzles. But outside of that, nothing in this game was original. Nothing in this game was scary. And as if to say the ultimate kind of fuck you to people who spent money on this game, the Blair Witch is not in the game at all. The only thing this game that ties it to the Blair Witch is that you find little Blair Witch insignias hanging in the woods made of wood sticks or whatever. That's it. There's nothing else in the game that has anything to do with Blair Witch. It's literally a franchising deal where they bought the rights to Blair Witch and made a completely unrelated game and tried to jump on the bandwagon, and it fails miserably. In addition, the ending is insanely confusing, where it may be a time loop, maybe it's not. It's just a very disappointing game. If you're looking for survival horror, this is not the game you want. It's just a really boring waste of time, in my opinion. Okay. Moving on. The number 14 most disappointing game of the year is actually not the footage I'm showing you now, but I couldn't freaking find the right video, and I apologize. Gears of War 5, but not the campaign. In fact, if anything, showing you what I'm showing you right now kind of highlights that the campaign of Gears of War 5 was actually quite good. It was unique and interesting. It had open world exploration for the first time ever in the Gears world. The plot was good. Yeah, it had some bugs, but ultimately I really liked the plot of Gears 5. The thing that I hated about Gears of War 5 that made the game very disappointing for me was the multiplayer. Because when you think Gears, of course you think, oh, a fun campaign, but then you think, oh, multiplayer, that's going to hook you. That's something you're going to be playing for weeks or months on, and something that's fun that you could just jump in and have a good time playing casually. Or it actually has a very competitive nature where if you want to really play it hardcore, you can get good at it and actually play it at a higher level. But sadly with Gears 5, this just didn't come to fruition. First of all, the standard multiplayer gameplay of the game is built around competitive play. It's very difficult to just jump in and enjoy, unlike previous Gears games where I was easily able to just jump in and play for a few months and just have fun casual sessions. This was like day one. People were finding insane ways to abuse and look over ways that you couldn't normally think you could and find these high-level strategies. I mean, I played the game the first week. I couldn't even do anything in the multiplayer by the end of the first week because people had gotten insanely competitive at the game. The other thing is there's no real casual modes to the multiplayer. Both multiplayer modes are kind of hardcore competitive, so there's no easy way to just jump in and mess around. It seemed like the only way to play was to get insanely good, which I wasn't very interested in. Now, there was an online survival mode as well, which was supposed to be one of the new features of the game. You know, all these different characters you could play as, level them up in the online survival mode. Well, guess what? It was bugged. It wasn't working properly. When you first tried to play it during launch week and you tried to play as the robot droid character, half the time his abilities would freeze. This was a common problem with certain characters and things within the first week to 2 weeks of the game's launch. The multiplayer wasn't working properly for certain modes, which basically made it unplayable and very disappointing. So Gears of War 5's campaign, in my opinion, was a major step in the right direction. But how many people bought Gears of War 5 just to play the campaign? For me, I was actually playing this game for the multiplayer, and it was just too ridiculously serious. Too many people trying so hard to be competitive. No real modes put in there for casuals. And I just ended up not enjoying it after about a week. And I dropped it completely and never played it again. So it was pretty disappointing for me. Okay? All right. The 13th most disappointing game of the year for me. Well, you're about to see it in just a second here. Jump Force. All right? So most people don't even remember this game, which is pretty funny. But on paper, think about this. A game that takes all of the characters from all of the insanely popular Shonen Jump manga series and puts it together into this big amalgamation of a game. Oh my god, Naruto versus One Piece versus Dragon Ball versus My Hero Academia versus this versus that. You know, Yu Yu Hakusho. They're all thrown together. And the thing is, I'm a fan of a lot of these franchises. I've seen a lot of these series. And I thought it was a pretty interesting premise. And in reality, the idea of making your own, look at this character here, your own anime character to be a fighter in the world with all these other anime fighters was kind of an interesting idea. And in reality also, the plot of the game isn't so bad. But the problem with Jump Force is sadly, very sadly, the combat's terrible. The combat is so abysmally bad. The engine is just so pathetically basic and not fun and just really just a joke. It's a lot of button mashing and just activating abilities left and right. It's just not fun to play. If you're going to make an anime game with all these guys mashing up, you got to have some kind of a gameplay engine that ends up being fun in the long run. The truth of the matter is, playing through the campaign of this game is an utter chore because the gameplay is so shitty. You just don't want to play it after you're halfway through. Like, does this ever end? I'm so bored. Then you try to play online and it's like, forget it. It's a laggy mess and the gameplay is just unbalanced and unfun. It's just not a competitive game whatsoever, and it's certainly not a fun fighting game either. It's just not very good at all. So it looks pretty, right? You look at these cutscenes right now, you're like, oh my god, it's possessed Vegeta leading an army of superpowered people against you, and now you have to fight them or whatever. Wow, sounds good on paper. Until you actually pick up the controller and go to actually do the combat of the game and find out it's incredibly bad and you just don't want to play it anymore. What's funny is they had actually planned that this game was going to be like a huge hit. They had waves of DLC planned for characters, but the game did not sell well at all. It was pretty much critically panned at release. And so most people don't even remember the game exists anymore. When they were actually planning on this being like a franchise, it just flopped miserably. Jump Force was a pretty big disappointment. Okay. Moving on. The number 12 most disappointing game of the year is... I wonder if any of you even know what game this is. Layers of Fear 2. Yes, this was yet another survival horror game where you were supposed to be going through a ghost ship that was supposedly haunted or had something supernatural going on, and you were being guided through by these kind of ephemeral people telling you to do things and having these morality choices. There were creatures that were after you in certain parts, while in others you were locked in elements of the past, and you were trying to solve complex puzzles, and you had to live in the shoes of some other characters to see what happened in the past and how this influenced everything in the game. Ultimately, this game is just as bad as Blair Witch. On paper, it sounds good, and if you see snippets of a few jump scare moments or whatever, the game actually looks pretty scary. But when you actually play the game, once you get a few hours in, you realize this is the same as all the other first-person horror games. There's really not much horror to it. It's just a bunch of creepy atmosphere. And by the way, I'm sorry, but I to spoil this for you guys, if you didn't play Layers of Fear 2 and you don't want to be spoiled, earmuffs right now, but I have to do this as a public service. Ladies and gentlemen, Layers of Fear 2, when you play through it, has no real ending. At the end of the game basically says, fuck you. You didn't somehow magically know that there were secret criteria you were supposed to fulfill during your playthrough of this game, and because you didn't fulfill the secret criteria, you don't get an ending. Go back to the start and replay the game, somehow magically figuring out these secret criteria to get an ending. Huh? What the fuck? I'm not even kidding. There's a character on screen taunting you, telling you did it wrong, go play the game again. Fuck you. I spent the money. I played through your entire shitty game. I get to the end. Give me some kind of a resolution to the story. No, go back and suffer through this unscary game again. No, how about double fuck you? I'll never play your game again. And it's one of the most disappointing games of the year. What a bunch of shit. Okay. Continuing on. The next game on my most disappointing games countdown, 2019, is sadly a game that I had a lot of hype for, and I actually had a lot of anticipation for, and I was actually hoping it was going to be one of the best games of the year, and it just did not come to fruition. Ladies and gentlemen, the next game on my countdown is Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 for the Switch. All right, and the reason that I kind of had to say for the Switch is because I actually feel the reason that I'm saying for the Switch is actually the reason this game is not a very good game. On paper, again, looks great. Oh, it's in line with all the previous Marvel Ultimate Alliance games, which 1 and 2 came out roughly about a decade ago and were exceptionally good games. Drop in, drop out co-op with your friends over the internet or even locally. All of Marvel's large cast of heroes thrown into a game where all the plot lines kind of intersect, going to actual Marvel locations in the world that are real in the Marvel universe and also in the movie universe and all of that. It's really fun, right? Well, guess what? Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 does kind of fulfill all those criteria, only it literally does nothing new. When you play Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, you actually feel like you're playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2. The problem is, you're playing it on the Switch. You may not be noticing it, but the graphics on the Switch aren't as good as they should personally be on another console, in my opinion. The game ends up looking a little bit less interesting because of watered-down graphics. As you're seeing right now, choppiness when you're actually playing this online with co-op. And in addition to that, the game didn't even function properly. There's actually certain co-op battles and modes that you want to do. And when you try to do them, you do the optional boss fight, and then the game just freezes and never lets you quit out. Now you're screwed. And now you actually have to completely cancel out of your game and reform the party online to even get into these sections. But really the reason is because the online Switch functionality isn't great. The Switch does not have amazing online functionality. It's very limited in what it can do. So graphically, as well as the online functionality, the Switch holds this game back from being as good as the 2 previous games. You're even seeing right now, we're screwed up. We couldn't progress in the game. That's what I wanted to highlight. We couldn't even progress in the game because the online functionality is screwed up and we had to keep restarting, reforming the party, restarting, continue to even continue playing the game. It's a shame because I really wanted to play this game badly all year. I loved the first 2 games. I had people lined up to do the full gameplay with me in co-op. But it just ended up being more of the same game I played 10 years ago with nothing additional added. And sadly, online capability that wasn't good. So Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 had great potential and ended up being a ginormous dud just because it was solely on the Switch, which is a huge problem because I really feel if this was cross-platform, it would have worked a lot better. But hey, it was Nintendo who actually financed the game's development, so I guess it is what it is, right? Alrighty then. Up next, on my most disappointing games countdown of 2019, a game that, again, I had high hopes for, and I had played previous iterations of the series, and I really felt excited about it. And sadly, I just have to say this latest iteration was not as good as the previous ones. The game I'm talking about is Plants vs. Zombies, The Battle for Neighborville. So Plants vs. Zombies jumped into a third-person action game franchise, I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago with Garden Warfare, and then a couple years after that with Garden Warfare 2. These were games that took the actual characters from the Plants vs. Zombies mobile games on your phone and turned them into third-person action characters. It had class-based warfare, much like Team Fortress 2, and it had competitive modes like Team Deathmatch, but also it had big territory takeover modes. It even had a big story fleshed out where there were single-player campaign story, bosses and the like, and then other kind of content as well. And so I was pretty excited when they announced finally, after years of this franchise being dead for whatever reason, that they was coming back with the Battle for Neighborville. Sadly, the game is not as good as the first 2 games in the franchise. First of all, the single-player campaign is quite good, and I should call that out. I played one side of the single-player campaign, and I actually thought that it was quite fun. But again, much like with Gears, this is not a franchise where you're buying it to only play the single-player campaign. Most people who buy Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville are looking for a robust multiplayer experience. I hate to say this, but the game is just not very good online. The more that I played it, the more apparent it became that the online connections weren't very good. In fact, you can actually see in some of the gameplay I'm showing you right now, I'm shooting directly at the enemies, and the hit detection isn't working. It's because the game actually is completely desynced online and actually has very big problems with the hit detection for whatever reason. With Garden Warfare 1 and 2, I never ran into these problems. For some reason, In Battle for Neighborville, this seems to be an apparent issue. You're shooting straight at someone and their energy bar isn't depleting. Oh, the game's claiming you're not hitting them. And I'm sorry, but that's just a really big problem. This is supposed to be a game that's based off of fun online multiplayer, and if you can't shoot someone standing in front of you, what's the point of playing? I didn't just play this once or twice. I played this like 3 or 4 times, hoping that every time that I played it online, it would get better, and the experience just stayed the same, meaning it had to have been server issues and or the netcode that they wrote for this game, and not just my internet connection, but just an ongoing issue with the latency or whatever, and that's bad. You know, I wanted to really enjoy this game. I played Garden Warfare 1 and 2 a lot. I only played this game for about a week and a half until I gave up and said, this is not fun because the online play, I just can't kill anyone. I just don't want to play it anymore. So Battle for Neighborville ends up being a ginormous disappointment because if the online play don't work, if that's the primary component you buy the game for, what else are you going to do with it, right? So sadly, the game is a dud. Moving on. The next game in my most disappointing games of 2019 countdown is a game that had a lot of anticipation, but also a lot of people were very trepidatious about if the game would be good or not. I was one of those people. The reason that I'm talking about this game like this is because I played the original game in the franchise many years ago, had a lot of hype behind it, and then it wasn't very good. So when the sequel was announced, you're like, oh, did they learn from their lessons? Well, yes and no. The game that I'm talking about is Rage 2 from id Software. This is a franchise that was heavily marketed and heavily hyped earlier this year. Oh, we've changed everything. Look, you can now drive around in vehicles like in Mad Max, and you can customize stuff, and you could do all kinds of fun stuff you couldn't do in Rage 1, because Rage 1, the major complaint was that the game was too linear and it was too repetitive with the first-person shooting, so we're going to open up the world to an open-world formula, unlike the first game, and you're going to be able to wander around and do side missions and the like. And the truth of the matter is, Rage 2 is fun for about 3 to 4 hours. Okay, you start unlocking new abilities, you start unlocking new vehicles, and the game is pretty neat and fun. But after, I'd say, about the first 4 to 5 hours, the game just becomes an endless circular grind that's incredibly boring and incredibly repetitive. Almost every mission ends up being exactly the same. Once you get all the weapons and most of the Rage abilities, the rest of the game is just busy work after busy work after busy work. In fact, the game requires you to do a certain number of busy work missions to qualify to do the next mission that's a story-based mission that's actually interesting. So, Rage 2 did actually improve upon the original game, but sadly for a modern game in 2019, just didn't do enough to hang it as a full-fledged retail game, which it was sold as. If this game was sold as like $30, I would have said, okay, I can put up with the fact that there's a ton of repetitive content and there's nothing very original outside of maybe 4 or 5 hours. But the problem is the game was sold as, oh, this is a full-fledged retail game. There's actually entire areas of the map that are empty. There's a town in the game that doesn't do anything. There's no missions. The NPCs don't react to you. It's like this was unfinished. Like the game had more content that they never even bothered finishing for the full retail release of the game. Maybe they eventually sold it as a DLC. Who knows? But in reality, the game is incredibly disappointing because it starts off fun, but that fun is so short-lived. And the next thing you know, you end up being so disappointed by the game, you don't ever want to play it again. So Rage 2 starts off good, ends up being insanely disappointing, and what can you say? What can I say? It is not a very good game. The next game in our most disappointing games countdown is a game that I had no idea what to expect or what it was going to be, but the premise sounds good. The game I'm talking about is called The Sinking City. Now, for those of you who are fans of H.P. Lovecraft, and for those of you who like Lovecraftian lore, imagine if there was a video game that took all of the fun gameplay, the fun plot lines of all of H.P. Lovecraft's books, all right, and put them into a game that had investigation gameplay, combat, horror, and all of these elements thrown into a really interesting story. On paper, that sounds really good, okay? But when you actually play The Sinking City, you kind of realize there's something major missing here. First of all, the gunplay of The Sinking City is absolutely fucking terrible. It's abysmally bad, okay? It's like they never made a game before. There's no proper targeting system. The controls are incredibly wonky. The frame rate chops up when enemies come at you, and it ends up being insanely disappointing. The enemies do giant chunks of health damage when they hit you, and you constantly just find yourself pumping items to try to heal yourself and reload your guns and heal yourself and reload your guns. There's no proper dodge. There's no way to block. You basically just have to tank out every single fight in the game or chuck a bunch of grenades into a room with enemies in order to kill them so they don't hurt you. It literally feels like the combat engine of this game is about 15 years outdated, and that's an awful thing. But in addition to that, the rest of the game isn't very interesting. You talk to a bunch of people that look like fish. There's a kind of a weird plot line where something happened to the city. You got sucked in by some kind of creatures, and they have creatures breeded with the humans, and that's why you got fish people. And there's some people that look like apes as well, and it's never really explained what the hell's going on with them. And in reality, after playing the game for, like, I think it was like 12 or more hours, I just couldn't take myself to continue playing it. Like, it seemed like it was going to be great, and it had a creepy atmosphere at first, but the game just ends up being so effing boring. I mean, when you make a game like this, couldn't you just, like, ask someone playing it if they like it? Because once you make a game and you're like, geez, I wonder what we could do to gameplay elements to make our game fun. It seems like they never asked anybody that. They literally just threw elements into a game and said, here, it's a game. Yeah, but is it fun? Like, is the combat fun? No. The open world wandering, is it fun? No. The graphics, man, they're just okay. The plot line, man, it's kind of boring. There's an investigation aspect you can see here where you're trying to solve a mystery and piece together timelines of what happened in certain areas in a house or whatever. And that's not fun either. Like, nothing about this game is actually fun at all. It's just really freaking boring. All right, so it is what it is. All I have to say is I didn't like the game at all, sadly, and there's not much you can do about it. It sucks. All right, moving on. The next game in my most disappointing games countdown. All right, I really wanted to like this game. In fact, I played a full playthrough of this game despite the fact that my viewers consistently during the playthrough asked me to stop playing it. And in reality, I actually feel that this next game has a really good plot. One of the best plots recently in games. All right, original, fun concept. But the problem is that's only one aspect of a game. A game has to have good plot and good graphics, but also good gameplay. And that's where I feel this game fell flat on its face. The game I'm talking about is Control by Remedy Games. The same game studio that made Alan Wake. The same game studio that made Quantic Dream a few years back. And back with Quantum Break. And when I played Quantum Break, I said, you know, the reason I think Quantum Break failed was not because of the plot, because the plot was interesting, but the gameplay was kind of mediocre. And it's like, okay, so they had many years to come up with a new engine and a new way to implement fun gameplay into a game that had a unique plot. They didn't do it. The gameplay of Control is incredibly mediocre. It's standard third-person shooter gameplay with a few telekinetic powers thrown in. Oh, you can hover. Oh, you can throw an item with your telekinesis or whatever. It never feels like a proper shooter because, as you can see here, there's no actual cover-based system in the game. The only way you can ever take cover in the game is by pulling debris in front of you, which uses your psychic power, so you can never have cover and then peek around and fire. It's either you're behind cover or you're not. That's not fun. And for me, a lot of the fights and the things that are in the game are just so incredibly tedious and annoying and lackluster. Like, man, I've had fights like this in other games where the combat was much better, and this game, it just kind of sucks. And I wish that they had done better with the combat, because, again, the plotline of Control is actually one of the most original and interesting plot lines I've had in a long time in video games. The graphics ain't so bad. Take a look. They're pretty detailed. They're nicely drawn out, and there's a lot of interesting and unique enemies in the game. But when you have a game where most of the gameplay elements of your game is simply this repetitive, boring, uninspired combat with no proper cover-based system, I feel like I'm playing a 15-year-old game. Another problem that seems to be a common theme running through all the disappointing games this year. No one made games with modernized game mechanics, and then they expect that people are going to like them. I'm sorry, but you got to give it... You have to deliver on all cylinders. A great story is one thing, but then you got to give me gameplay that also is going to hook me. And the gameplay of this game just made me feel like, man, I just want to get to the next story segment because I hate the combat. And that's why Control is one of the most disappointing games for me this year. Okay. Now we're moving on to the top 6, ladies and gentlemen. The 6th most disappointing game of 2019 is a game that I'm going to call upon what I said at the very beginning of this video in this countdown. that this is not necessarily a game that I feel is actually a bad game, but it's a game that disappoints me. The game that I'm talking about, if I could click on it, is Days Gone. All right? Why is Days Gone on my disappointing games list of 2019? There's a few reasons. First of all, we heard about this game originally years and years and years ago. This game was supposed to come out something like 2 years ago, but kept getting delay after delay after delay. And when you get a game that's delayed as much as Days Gone was, you're expecting, like, this game's going to be the best game of survival ever with zombies in it, right? Like, you're saying, wow, there's seriously, like, going to be so much good stuff going on in this game because they delayed it so much, they're going to have the most robust engine ever for a zombie survival game, because not only will it be like The Last of Us or maybe some combined with some Resident Evil, but also you're going to be able to ride vehicles. It's going to be really neat, right? Well, the gameplay of Days Gone, sadly, is kind of mediocre. Basic cover-based gameplay, third-person shooter, sneaking elements when it comes to trying to kill the zombies. It's basically stuff you've kind of done in a lot of other games before, with not much originality at all in the gameplay elements. And that's a sad thing. I'm not saying the gameplay elements aren't fun. I mean, at some point, once you get good enough at the game and you get enough abilities, the gameplay actually becomes really good. The problem for me with Days Gone is that to get to the good gameplay elements, you have to suffer through, I'd say, about 12 to 15 hours of boredom. The gameplay is incredibly tedious. You don't have the good abilities you need to be able to do the things that are fun in the game yet. You have low-level weapons, and it's just a grind to get through the first dozen or so hours of the game. Now, once you finally get to the better story elements and better abilities of the game actually gets really good. But as a streamer, I had a lot of problems retaining a viewing audience for that long. How many people want to watch 3 or 4 4-hour streams before a game gets good? And that's a horrible problem with this game. The pacing is terrible. Instead of throwing you headfirst into a unique and interesting world, you just get kind of tedious and boredom stuff for the first 10 or so hours, and then you got to try to find good stuff afterwards. So, I definitely think the game is actually a good game once you get past those first 12 hours or so. But how many people are going to stick in for that? And it's actually funny because if you read reviews for Days Gone, a lot of people never even mention some of the stuff that happens in the second half of the game because I don't think they ever made it that far. They reviewed the game without ever beating it, pretended like they did, and they don't even know that the game kind of changes up and has a lot of different gameplay elements in the second half, and that the game's story actually gets really good in the second half, but you have to tough it out and get to that second half of the game to get to the good stuff. In 2019, I'm sorry, give me a game that's good throughout. Don't give me a game that's bad for the first half and good for the second half. I need a game that's good throughout, and Days Gone fails at that miserably and is not very good in the first half, and that's why it's the disappointing game countdown, or one of the games in the disappointing games countdown, excuse me. All right, continuing on. The next game, the number 5 most disappointing game of the year for me. Shenmue 3. That is correct. A game that I literally just finished a couple days ago. A game that I was playing for the greater part of a month and a half over the end of the year. And a game that probably was one of the most anticipated and hyped up games because people had waited almost 20 years for this game to come out. Now, for me, I did not get super hyped for the game because I was not a hardcore fan of the original Shenmue games. I'd always heard about them being great on the Dreamcast, but I didn't get a chance to play them until the last year or two when I played the remastered versions on modern consoles. So when I got Shenmue 3, hearing how much money, millions upon millions of dollars went into this game, I'm going into it very, very much expecting they've done something new or unique or different to bring it into the modern era. Not at all. Like, Shenmue 3 feels like you're playing Shenmue 1 and 2. Like, they didn't even try something different. It's exactly the same game as Shenmue 1 and 2, with the only exception being they revamped the combat system, but it's still awful. The combat system in Shenmue 1 and 2 is based off of the combat system of Virtua Fighter, an arcade game franchise that was popular at the time, that was a fighting game franchise with 3D fighters. They tried to implement the motions and inputs from that game into Shenmue. It didn't necessarily work very well, and that was always kind of a gripe of people who liked the series. The combat wasn't very good. So with Shenmue 3, they tried to change it, and the combat is still terrible. It ends up being just dashing, blocking, and mashing a button to try to get a special move out instead of actual combat. There's no dodge system. There's no parry system. If you have modern combat in a game, you have to have some kind of robustness to it. They literally pretend like you're playing a game 20 years ago when you do the combat of Shenmue 3. All right? What I will say for Shenmue 3 is this. The game's graphics are great. I actually really liked going through Bailu Village and seeing how beautiful the environments were. The fact that there's so many NPCs in the game that all have voice acting attached to them with all lines pertinent to the things that you're asking them at the time, depending on where you are in the plot. I definitely think that that's well done, all right? But I'm sorry. Millions upon millions upon millions of dollars that went into the crowdfunding for this game, and all they could come up with was doing the same exact game that came out 20 years ago with better graphics. Like, how do you not see that people were going to be disappointed by that? And I'm sorry, I was expecting more from the game, not the same games that I just played the past 2 years ago. I was still okay with playing it, and I still enjoyed playing it, and I would play Shenmue 4. But I have to admit, Shenmue 3 definitely disappointed me because I thought it was going to be something different. All right. Continuing on. The fourth most disappointing game of 2019 for me. And by the way, hold on. Because I misclicked. We're getting down to the top 4, guys. So now you got to start thinking, gee, are Phil's picks exactly what I thought they were going to be? Because now we're getting down to the final 4, right? All right. All right. The fourth most disappointing game for me this year, or last year, 2019, was Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the multiplayer. Not the single-player campaign, which I played and I very much enjoyed, but the multiplayer gameplay of Modern Warfare. I hate to say it, I thought the game was going to be good after playing the beta. The graphics, as you can see, got a major overhaul. The way the characters move, certain gameplay elements all got refined and changed up, and the game looked like it was going to be quite interesting and fun. I like Call of Duty, and I usually get hooked on it and end up wanting to play the multiplayer several sessions throughout months. But sadly, with Modern Warfare, after only playing it for about a month, I give up on it. Why? I'll tell you why. Because sadly, this game is very apparent they didn't put enough effort into making the online connections and the hit detection worthy of a competitive game. The game is wonky as shit. Much like I've always complained about Call of Duty in the last, say, 3 to 4 years, the firefights are not even. It seems like one person may be seeing one thing from one end while the other person has seen a completely different scenario. I couldn't tell you how many times I see a guy walking up to me, I literally get the drop on him, shooting him 5-6 times before the game ever shows him firing a bullet at me. Somehow I'm instantly dead. Then when you watch the kill cam, oh, on his side, he drew and shot on you first. And this happens all the time. Bad hit detection, bad latency and connections. I'm sorry, how can I want to play this game in an extended way when every fucking time I play there's ridiculous bullshit every fucking time? And I just got tired of it. I'm sorry, it seems like they're using the same netcode for like 4 or 5 years straight now. 2 years ago, Call of Duty World War II. I said I really liked the gameplay elements of the game, but the connection was bad, and if the connections were better, the game would have been great. Last year, I played Black Ops 4, and I said, man, I really don't like the gameplay elements of the game, but the online connections are all right, okay? This year, it seems like we're back to the drawing board with the shitty netcode, good gameplay elements, but netcode that's just trash. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm tired of this with Modern Warfare, with Call of Duty in general, that every year you get a weird mixed bag. Sometimes there's a fun campaign, sometimes the campaign sucks, sometimes the multiplayer is all right, sometimes it's supposed to be like the premier first-person shooter, right? The one that has an installment every fucking year. Give me multiplayer that works. All I demand from you is that you give me multiplayer where the connections are fair and people can actually get fair kills. Not, I shoot you 25 times and I get shot once and I die. Fuck that shit. So this game is insanely disappointing for me because I just don't want to play it anymore because sadly, the game's netcode is not good and it's just not entertaining because of that. I'm not going to sit there and suffer through, hit someone a million times, then I watch it from their kill cam side and they shot me first. Fuck that shit, and fuck Infinity Ward for screwing up their franchise yet again. All right, the top three most disappointing games of the year. The third most disappointing game of the year for me What is it? What could it be? I wish I had a better clip, but I actually couldn't find one. It's actually, what you're about to see in just a moment when they actually show the driver of this car, if they ever show it, Life is Strange 2. About time. So, Life is Strange was a very unique game in that it was one of these games that was heavily narrative, but you had the ability to change the narrative depending on important choices in the game. There were supernatural powers of the main character who you could manipulate to change time, rewind events. You could do risky things in the game and then try to fix them if things go wrong. It was really a unique and interesting plot with kind of a mystery element always going on behind it. And then finally, at the end of the game, there was this big supernatural thing that happened, and there was a payoff, and it was quite interesting, all right? I liked Life is Strange 1, despite the fact that I don't think the writing was perfect. I think it was a very original and unique and fun game. Life is Strange 2 basically tried to say, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to take away all the original fun elements of the game that you liked and just make it a really kind of heavy-handed plot line with SJW themes. I'm sorry, I have nothing wrong with social justice, okay? Nothing wrong with social justice at all. If you feel that there's a need for social justice. When I'm playing a fucking video game like this, I don't need to have political themes crammed down my fucking throat every possible moment. And this game, so many times, tries to say things like, oh, conservatives in the United States are so racist and they hate anyone who's come over the border. There's so many ridiculous times when the main characters, just because they're Hispanic, get mistreated by other people. Like, what country do you think we fucking live in where every other person treats you like shit because you're a certain nationality? That's not how the United States of America is. And the game actually does this so heavy-handedly that it actually portrays things in a really ridiculous and negative light. Like, I feel shitty about the United States when I play Life is Strange 2, but it's not as bad as they portray it in this fucking game, all right? Now, is there a character who has supernatural powers? Yes. Do you play as that character? No. So if you're not the one with supernatural powers, the game's not as fun. It's just common sense. The first game you had the powers, you could manipulate the situations, you could see how things change dependent on your decisions. They took that element of fun out of the game in Life is Strange 2. And I'm sorry to say that made it kind of suck. The heavy-handed political agenda of the writers was in every episode of all 5 episodes. It was insanely badly written to the point where I was like, this is so ludicrously unrealistic. I'm so annoyed at this. I don't see how I could take it seriously. And in fact, I'd say probably around the 3rd to 4th episode, I just stopped taking it seriously and made fun of it. And I had more fun making fun of the game than actually trying to play it seriously. So if anything, what this shows is that a different dev team and a different writing team can completely either make something succeed or tank. This game's creative development, this game's direction went completely off the rails in a stupid-ass direction. And if they had just kept it in line with, oh, cool, supernatural powers, and it ties into a mystery story or whatever, it would have been a great game. But instead, they had to make it ultra-political, shove these SJW themes down your throat constantly. The game ended up being piss poor. The ending was actually quite pathetic. And I just thought it was probably one of the worst games of the year, especially after playing the original game, which was so good. This game is so bad. It's just a fucking joke and a disappointment. Do not play this. If you played the first game and you're expecting to get more of the same with the sequel and you haven't played this yet, don't play it. It's laughably different, and you just should skip it because you're just going to be wasting your fucking time and feel like you wasted your money. All right. So, this is it, guys. Now we're really down to the nitty-gritty. The top 2 most disappointing games of the year for me. All right? The top 2. The 2 biggest disappointments. What's it going to be? Are you ready? In number 2, ladies and gentlemen. Hilarious because everyone in Stream Chat's trying to guess. Okay. The top 2. You ready? The second most disappointing game of the year. Death Stranding. Oh my God. I know. You guys are going to flip out. Some people will flip out and some people won't. Because this game was a very, very dividing game this year. Some people really loved it. Some people really hated it. I was kind of middle of the road on Death Stranding. Okay? Now, allow me to tell you what I like and don't like about Death Stranding. I like the story. I like the motion capture, the acting, the voice acting. the music, the graphics. I just mentioned a ton of stuff that's really outstanding about Death Stranding, right? But the one thing that I think almost everyone who's played this game can agree on, the gameplay is not good. The gameplay of Death Stranding is you walking around a giant barren wasteland, either avoiding bandits trying to steal the shit on your back or avoiding invisible enemies that are trying to throw sludge at you and drive you underground. Who knows? Because the plot is so silly and convoluted, it's never really clear until the very end of the game what's going on with these creatures coming after you. But in reality, what you need to ask yourself when you look at a game like Death Stranding, is it fun? And I could tell you wholeheartedly, every time that there was fun dialogue or a cutscene that was elaborating on the mystery of the story, every once in a while if there was a really big boss fight, those elements were great. And there was a few times that this epic music would ring out in the middle of a beautiful field that I was crossing, and I'd be like, wow, this is really fun and cool. But you have to weigh and balance how much of the game is that. And I'd say maybe 60% of the game is the story and cutscenes, while 40% of the game is doing exactly what you see here. Either walking on foot with shit on your back, or driving around on vehicles going from point A to point B. And sadly, that's just not fun. It's not. It's boring traversal. It's a gameplay element that Kojima was trying to relay a feeling and emotion through it, rather than actually put fun and riveting gameplay into the game. When you look at other games that have been developed by Hideo Kojima, okay, I can wholeheartedly tell you that even though I may not have been the best at them or even understood them, they're pretty good. Take a look at Metal Gear Solid's sneaking system and the little nuances of that game engine and how that game engine evolved over the years. And if you really become a master of that, how fun it is, right? The gameplay of Death Stranding is not fun. Even if you master it, you know what you're doing, it's still not fun. You're just walking for most of the fucking game. That's not fun at all. What Kojima was trying to do in this gameplay was make you feel like you were going over this ginormous undertaking, this huge expanse by yourself. You were sacrificing so much of yourself to reconnect people who had been disconnected. The feeling of connections, the feeling of the stranding of people together, and how social connections are so important in life, and you need those social connections, is an important theme. But do you sacrifice the entirety of the fun factor of your game to relay a single theme? That's literally what Kojima did in Death Stranding, and it doesn't work. It ends up being very fucking boring, and I've said this multiple times during my playthrough, and I'll say it again. If I had not been live streaming Death Stranding, I would have never finished this game. No way. I would have never went through it because it's so boring doing most of the delivery missions, and especially when you get into the mountainous region and you have to literally go in circles for about 7 to 8 hours, walking around doing the same shit over and over, only now there's more enemies and more enemies. It becomes more tedious and more annoying. It's just not fun. And I would have given up and quit and said, I'm going to do something else that I'm having fun with. But because I was live streaming it, I was at least able to enjoy the going through it and interacting with you guys during the boring downtime of the traveling and the delivery of stuff. And on top of all that, the plot was great. So it was kind of like you're suffering through a boring game in order to get to the really great story. And I'll be honest, I love the ending of the game. But I'm sorry, you have to have a game that has all the right gameplay elements, right? This game, the gameplay element of the actual delivery was not fun. And because of that, it's one of my most disappointing games of the year. If Kojima had any other idea for what the gameplay could have been, I probably would have liked it better, and it really is sad that that's the case. All right? But now, ladies and gentlemen, the one you've all been waiting for, the ultimate stinker doo-doo of 2019, the game that I really feel was the most disappointing game of the year, based off of not only my own conceptions of the game, but your conceptions of the game, popular conception, what everyone thought and said about the game. The most disappointing game of the year is Kingdom Hearts 3. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Kingdom Hearts 3 had such insane fucking hype around it. People were so hardcore fans of this franchise. They had been waiting for so long for this to be the penultimate modern game in the Kingdom Hearts franchise that would culminate all the plot lines of 500 side games into one game, modernized graphics, newer things like Frozen combined with older Disney franchises, and just kind of making it the biggest, most ultimately fun Kingdom Hearts experience ever. And that really didn't happen. I'm sorry, it just didn't happen. Kingdom Hearts 3 is a game that sadly falls flat on its face for the wrong reasons. Like, if the game's story had been bad, you could kind of say, well, that's because they have too many games in the fucking franchise, and they really milked the franchise so much that, sadly, the story can't make any sense, right? But that's not what happened. In reality, the story of the game is its strong point because it actually does do a good job of tying up loose ends and bringing in 1 million characters from all the different Kingdom Hearts franchises to have this big culmination at the end. The graphics are good. Take a look at the graphics. You know, I was pleased with how the game looked. I thought that the world design in certain worlds was actually quite fun. But for me, the ultimate problem with Kingdom Hearts 3 is that it seems to me like they forgot about the one critical gameplay element. The gameplay. The combat. It's terrible. The combat of Kingdom Hearts 3 is super piss fucking easy. It's so easy that I barely ever die. I think I failed twice in the entirety of my fucking playthrough, and I don't play Kingdom Hearts. I've only played Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 once ever, and I never played any of the spin-off games, and I'm beating this game without dying? What the fuck is going on? And the thing is, they really, literally, all right, just made it very stupidly and sadly a game for people who were kind of jumping into the franchise for the first time and maybe they weren't trying to get challenged. They had these big elements that were just crutches, like the Disney vehicles, right? Oh my God, there's a water ride or there's a fucking carousel and it does insane damage and it destroys everything, including bosses and everything. It's like, okay, like that's a cool new element, but why does it make the game so fucking piss easy, right? And for me, like, I'm going through this game and I'm like, okay, so the plot's developing, we're in a new world now, but everything I mash and I mash and I mash. And when you're at like the 8th to 12th to 16th hour of mashing and you're like, this is literally the whole fucking game. Like, what the hell were they thinking? I'm sorry, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 both had much better gameplay elements than Kingdom Hearts 3. The combat of those games, in my opinion, was actually much better than Kingdom Hearts 3, and it ended up being a ginormous disappointment for me. In addition, I'll say this, some of the worlds are great, and then some of the worlds are just terrible. Like, the Toy Story world is really well done. Then you go to the Monsters, Inc. world, and it's like, it's so boring, and like no originality or creativity went into it at all. It's just repetitive hallways inside of a factory. Well, the Toy Story was a really cool giant toy store with unique enemies. It's like, it doesn't even seem like the game is balanced well. Almost like the different teams that designed the different levels weren't talking with each other. Wow, the Toy Story team did something really neat. We got to try to top that by doing something neat with Monsters, Inc. Now, Monsters, Inc. is just fucking boring, right? Try to turbo through Monsters, Inc. so you can get to one of the better stages coming up later. And that's that. Remember the Big Hero 6 stage? That's 2 thumbs up. It's a cool open world city. It's got all these fun elements. And then you got the Rapunzel stage that's kind of meh. You see what I mean? So for me, this game is the most disappointing game of the year. I was expecting probably one of the best RPGs that I've ever played in my life. Robust combat with new gameplay elements that were going to open it up and become fun and challenging and interesting. And it wasn't that at all. It was literally button mash your way through like 8 universes to get to the end and then get a big culmination of confusing story that me, as a person who's not a hardcore fan of Kingdom Hearts 3, couldn't give two shits about. I was in it for the Disney worlds and I was in it for the combat. And it kind of failed to deliver on good stuff with those and instead just focused on wrapping up story of like 20 years of games and ended up not being very good. So the thing is, Kingdom Hearts 3 really is a game that disappoints everyone. If you are not a hardcore fan of the Kingdom Hearts franchise and you play Kingdom Hearts 3, you probably didn't like it that much. If you were a hardcore fan of the Kingdom Hearts franchise, you probably still didn't like it that much because those people had completely different criticisms for the game. This is like the most agreed upon disappointing game of 2019 that no one really liked the end product of what the game became. And that's sad because the game should have been great for the amount of time and effort and anticipation we all had for it. And only now, this month, now there's a new DLC. Oh, look, it adds in the Final Fantasy characters that were mysteriously missing from the original game last year. And there's new gameplay elements. And for me, it's kind of like, too little, too late, man. Like, the game came out a year ago. I'm not going to forgive the game a year later because now you're adding a fucking DLC to it. It should have been good at launch. This, by far, the most disappointing game of the year for me. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching my most disappointing games of 2019 countdown. I know many of you disagree. In fact, people were literally in the stream chat exploding. I disagree with Phil because of this and that. And that's fine. We can all agree to disagree. But at least if you enjoyed this video, I hope that you got something out of it. Maybe this gives you some ideas of games to maybe stay away from that you were thinking of playing in 2019. And if anything, just thanks for watching, as usual, and thanks for all of your support. Until next time, this is DSP signing off for the most disappointing games of 2019. See you guys later.